Well, Terry, nobody, you know what they always say, nobody's safe when the legislature's in session. All right?
Yeah.
First things that they start talking about is, what books they want to burn, or who they're going to spank. And looking in today's paper, I see all these letters going to the Senate president from former students of this guy, what's his name, Emerson from Bozeman. I think that's it. I don't know if did you see that in today's paper yet?
Yeah, I did.
And the guy from, the former phys ed instructor from Bozeman. And all of a sudden these letters are coming from different places around the country. Oregon, they're coming from Democrats, Republicans, former students that are saying, this guy, knocked them around, when they were kids in school. And of course the reaction from whoever's the chair of that committee up there, the Committee on Committees. I love that one, the Committee on Committees. He said he doesn't think that there's anything these letter writers are saying they'd like him removed, from this education committee if this guy Emerson represents the quality of the legislators that are talking about education, and he's the one. I think he's the one that wants, wants to be able to spank, school students. So I don't know. I mean, but I don't know. I'm gonna have. I dread it, but I'm gonna have to go to Helen. I think there's a hearing Friday, the 31st, on this so-called blue ribbon governor's blue ribbons telecommunications task force, which geared up, almost 4 years ago. And I remember the first meeting that I went to, or tried to go to, and it was in, this was, I thought, was supposed to be public, right? And I went to look for the meeting place in Helena, and where was the meeting? It was like inside the U.S. West Telephone Company headquarters. And I had to kind of, talk my way past two security guards that didn't want me to go in the building, and I said, well, there's a public meeting going on in here. This is isn't that right? It was a Conrad Burns Roscoe Telecommunications meeting, I said, So anyway, finally I get up to the third floor, wherever the meeting was, and boy, oh boy, they didn't even know, the dirty looks I got from, I don't know, I guess they were telephone company people at the time. But anyway, so this Blue Ribbon Task Force on Telecommunications, I have the booklet over there on the table. Well, that's enough dishes for now. I'm glad pineapples grow. But I don't know, after the expenditure of, $100,000, I called trying to get the money figures from the Department of Administration on what this cost, this task force cost, and haven't come up with it yet, except I understand from the bureaucrats in Helena that the telecommunications industry, quote, contributed, quote, $75,000, to this task force. So, of course, they had the opportunity then, as I understand it, from one of the commissioners on the Public Service Commission that, then industry helped write the bill that's going to be heard for the first time this Friday, the 31st of January in Helena. So look at the title of this report, of this task force, Connecting Montana to the World, right? There's not a word in here, about public access cable communications. I mean, nobody on this task force, as far as I know, talked to anybody from Missoula Community Access Television. I mean, here we're trying to get connected, across the state, or to Helena, or even to the university. We have the means, It's just really discouraging when you work in telecommunications. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to go to Helena, and much as I dread the thought there. Here's Bill in Washington sent me this obituary. You remember this? I don't know if you were looking at this a couple of weeks ago. It's an obituary from the Washington Post, and really it was about. I think he was trying to draw a parallel between this guy's some parts of this guy's life and my own, but it's an obituary. I love obituaries. I mean, at least from the Washington Post and the New York Times, because they go on forever. And so this Paul Erdős, 83 years old, one of the world's greatest and most eccentric mathematicians, died, this was back in September, at a hospital in Warsaw after a heart attack. A Jewish native of Budapest, Dr. Erdős lived a celibate, monkish, and nomadic life devoted to mathematics. He had no home, sounds like me, lived out of a single suitcase, and since the 1940s had traveled the world teaching, attending conferences, and visiting mathematicians. He simply stayed with friends the world over. He was known to arrive unannounced at a friend's house with the simple announcement that quote, my brain is open. And he was a genius in mathematics. He devoted 19 hours a day to mathematics, right? He was the author of more than 1,500 works. And in 1986, he published 50 papers. Anyway, he said, Dr. Erdős defined the word mathematician as, quote, a machine for turning coffee into theorems. And told by many colleagues to slow down, he said there'll be plenty of time to rest in the grave. Standing 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing a strapping 130 pounds, he had white hair, glasses, and an unruly beard. He lived on a diet consisting largely of caffeine, antidepressants, and amphetamines. And he said that he had never learned to boil water and had not managed to butter his first piece of bread until he was 21. And added to this, a skin condition caused him to wear only silk underwear and led him to wash his hands more than 50 times a day. I like that one. Oh, the United States, this is from the New York Times. The United States is selling missiles it once banned. It's an effort to shore up the weapons industry in the United States. So these were weapons that we kept ultra secret up until a few years ago, and now we're just selling them to the highest bidders around the world. And then there's the first case of mad cow disease in Germany. There's the Germans killing, see those Germans killing those their cows there. I wonder if we'll ever get mad cow disease in Montana, or if anybody checks up on it. We're worried about what? I'm sorry if I'm moving too fast for the camera. And but we have mad buffalo disease. And I see where St. Mark, I'm talking about the governor, Mark Roscoe. Here's the headline in the Missoulian. Roscoe, only the president can save the bison. I mean, now all of a sudden it seems like as there's, and congratulations, by the way, to all the folks that have been going down and protesting that buffalo slaughter down by Yellowstone. I saw a bunch of the folks from Missoula down there on the news the other night, the television news. People are really finally getting upset about this, and now Roscoe is saying only the president can save the bison. That'd be great if we had, what's his name, the president? Clinton. Clinton could take a week off and come out here maybe and help us save the buffalo. I don't know what we're doing here. Oh yeah, I love the gambling industry in Montana. And this is from the Missoulian of Saturday, the 25th of January. The gambling industry turned out in force Friday to fight another attempt to create a computerized network for monitoring thousands of video, poker, and keno machines, you know. And, you know, the Attorney General has been trying to get this electronic monitoring system in place for, I don't know, since the last legislature. I don't know. You know, I think to the ordinary fella and gal in the streets of Montana, hey, the gambling industry is making lots of money and they don't want to pay any more taxes on that than they have to. And so they fill out these pieces of paper that somebody in Helena has to count. And now they're talking about in order to get this legislation passed for electronic monitoring, we'll loan the establishments the money so that they can convert the machines. I mean, we don't get enough information. We don't get enough information. I want to know more about the regents and the land deals. I mean, it's interesting on the land board. You get the 5, you know, statewide elected officials. Roscoe, the Attorney General, the State Auditor, Keenan from Education, and then Cooney, the Secretary of State. Roscoe, the only Republican, and then the 4 Democrats. So what were the deals that the land deals that the regents approved over the last 20 years that the Attorney General's office investigated and says, you know, these were bad deals? But I have yet to read, well, what were the deals? Who profited? And then, there's another obituary. Richard Berry, the rock and roll songwriter who wrote Louie Louie, dies at 61, right? And but what intrigues me about this is an obituary from the New York Times, and there's a picture of Richard Berry. I don't know if you can come in on that, Terry, or if you need for me to get closer. But anyway, he wrote Louie Louie, and of course what happened? Oh, we spent a couple $100,000 on the Federal Bureau of Investigation investigating whether if they played the record backward, you know, that it had bad lyrics. The FBI began a 30-month inquiry into the song. And Mr. Richard Berry was interviewed and interrogated by the FBI twice over one of the world's most, you know, recorded songs and you know, covered by musicians the world over. Sad, 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 sad. Oh, lawmakers attack porn. I mean, if the lawmakers are interested in censorship, I wonder if that Bob Gilbert is. You know, have you seen him on TV? He's
No, I never have.
You haven't seen Bob Gilbert on TV?
No. Oh, Bob. Yeah.
It's he reports from the legislature, you know, for TCI, but he's on the headline. Yeah. He's on CNN headline news channel, right?
I was thinking you were talking about the Big Four censorship guy.
And I don't know if he's on now. Let me just take a peek at the TV. Hold on a second. Well, yeah, he's on now. I think he's interviewing a legislator, and then on the left there's a 97 legislative update, TCI of Montana, and this is Mr. Gilbert on the left, the interviewer.
Why don't you turn it up a little bit, Mac?
The county attorneys and the postmaster, those type of things?
Yes, and not only in the Jordan area, but we've had that kind of threats against law enforcement officers, against judges down in the Bitterroot. And I think we just can't stand for that. And that's an attempt, these bills, I've worked with the County Attorneys Association to try and put these bills together so that we can really put an end to this kind of nonsense, I think, in Montana.
Steve, some of the other issues that you're interested in as you watch this session progress?
Well, I'm going to be very interested in how the governor's proposal for a sales tax wends its way through the system. I was kind of surprised that the governor couldn't bring it up in the election, but I'm glad that he brought it up now. And if that's how he wants to pay for his spending programs, I think we'll have a very robust debate on that particular issue. I think as well, we're going to be watching a whole series of bills dealing with gaming going through. One of them was to change the age for gambling in Montana, allow the legislature to change the age for gambling in Montana from 18 to 21. I was against that bill. I think we don't need to start limiting adults' ability to make decisions about how they're going to spend their time or their money, and we'll just have to see how that works.
The only opponents to that, I might point out, is that the gaming industry did not oppose that, but we had two young people come in. Tell me we're probably 19, 20, hard to guess age.
19, 20, 21, and their basic concern was we can vote, we can make contracts, we can get married. We ought to be able to make those decisions.
Make those decisions. They ask for responsibility. That bill, incidentally, has passed the Senate. It'll be up for House hearing later on in the session. Again, Steve, thanks for taking the time. Steve Doherty, part of the Great Falls delegation here in the Montana Senate. Back to CNN Headline News.
This fellow Bob Gilbert, the interviewer, right, is a registered lobbyist with the state of Montana, Montana Wool Growers Association, as I understand from the Office of Campaign Practices, Ed Argenbright, who handles the registration of lobbyists, and so. It troubles me. I mean, he seems like a likable man, and some of the interviews are interesting and informative, but I think that there's an ethical line that we need to consider, that if you've got a registered lobbyist who is not identified as a registered lobbyist when he's coming across on an all-news channel, as you heard him say there at the end, he says, and now back to CNN Headline News, people think of him as a journalist, but what happens later on? I mean, he gets to pick and choose who he interviews, and I just think that it'd be good if viewers had an opportunity to know that he is a lobbyist as well as an interviewer, for the an interviewer for TCI. Listen, I'd like to have, if the cable industry did for Montana what it does for the nation, we ought to have not just C-SPAN, but Montana Span. It's like, last year alone, public broadcasting in Montana tax dollars, Montana public broadcasting, both radio and television, got over $1 million from the state legislature, and that's in addition to the money that we as citizens pay out, donate to the system, and but we don't have any real coverage of the entire state. We're a very big state, and it'd be nice to see that the cable television industry, as it is done in this case, employed someone to try and provide legislative updates. We need this kind of coverage more extensively throughout the state. I'm expecting a call too from Bob Hermes at KPAX, because I've been I've been expecting a bunch of calls. Hi, this is McCarthy speaking. Oh yeah, I just took your name in vain. Bob, how's it going? Listen, I had called you last week and asked you about this, on the evening news, on the CBS evening news and other, national network news shows, it's closed captioned for the hearing impaired, and that's a good deal. We should have that. But I also noticed that when the closed captioning comes across, my TV screen, in this case it's CBS over your station, KPAX, and it also says that this is paid for in part by the United States Department of Education. That's federal tax dollars. Can you tell me how much the taxpayer kicks in on this? 1/3 of the cost, but you don't have a dollar figure on that. But all right. So the federal government taxpayers pay for 1/3 of the cost of that. Well, I don't know, Bob. My reaction would be that if this is significant, it's hard for me to believe that CNN and ABC and NBC and CBS. What, you're so poor and struggling as a network that you can't afford the full cost of captioning for the hearing impaired? Talk about corporate welfare. It may be a very modest example, dollar-wise. It'd be nice to know what the dollar figure is, if you can find out what that is. I did call up Conrad Burns' office, and they haven't come up with a dollar figure yet on that. But there's a good example of corporate welfare. Anyway, well, Bob, thanks for checking on that much, and stay tuned and keep in touch. Yep. Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. Bye. Well, anyway, got that much done. Let's see. What else have we got? Not too much here. I gotta go to Helena. Well, I think I have to. I woke up too early this morning. I think I have to. I'm gonna lay down and read the paper.
You'll have to move a dog, I'll bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
But she'll gladly move for you.
Well, do you think the FBI should be investigating more songwriters? Like this Richard Berry who wrote Louie Louie.
Well, what about all that FBI stuff that's going on right now? The bombers from Spokane that they didn't even check out until yesterday.
Right, exactly.
Then the FBI lab that is somebody has reported it as being in such a shambles that they've tainted evidence for years now. Mm-hmm. And probably all kinds of cases are going to become brought back in. In fact, the Oklahoma City bombing case, that they're calling one of these guys that squealed on the lab there as one of their witnesses, and now FBI's trying to discredit him. It's terrible.
Well, and now it used to be that the FBI was only allowed to operate within the borders of the United States. Now the FBI has got offices all over the world. In addition, of course, to the CIA. Everybody's talking about saving money. The CIA spends more money investigating its own spies. The budget's around $40 billion. I don't need those people. $40 billion.
Just rest easy there for a while, Mac. Knowing that the FBI and the CIA are.
Can we share this? Oh, nice play, Shakespeare. Oh boy, it's this federal government. Gambler. Yeah. Oh. Reading all this news about Helena in the legislature.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog's back. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog's back. These are all, or most of these folks are lobbyists for one cause or another. There must be money at stake whenever lobbyists gather. We're right outside the Montana Senate chambers, and they're talking about bills and reports and subcommittee meetings and very, very significant matters, I'm sure, but a lot having to do with the distribution of moolah, M-O-O-L-A-H, money, dollars, federal dollars, state dollars, community dollars. I wonder if they'll have a big debate about the 7-Up Pete mine. I doubt it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Perhaps being here is not exact words for it. It isn't so much an opportunity as a tremendous task to be here to represent the Montana labor movement on issues of extreme importance to workers, whether they're organized or not, in the state of Montana. You asked a few questions about what I do. My role as a full-time executive officer of the AFL-CIO is to represent the interest of our trade union members all across the state and our non-organized working people in the state when it comes to issues of politics, issues of legislation, sometimes in dealing with the bureaucracy of government, whether it be state or local government. Essentially everything that we can do to assist workers, with the exception of engaging in the full collective bargaining process. That's a process that is reserved to the rights of the local unions that the people out there belong to. Here in Montana, we have a very active citizens legislature, and as such, we find an awful lot of repetition on the kind of bills that come before us that will have an impact on workers and their working families. For example, this year, we have 2 right-to-work drafts that have been proposed, one that would affect public employees exclusively, and another that would affect all workers in the state of Montana. For the people out there who don't understand what right to work is, it simply prohibits a union from requiring that employees who benefit from the provisions of the wages, hours, and working conditions grievance procedure that is contained in a collective bargaining agreement, simply prohibits unions from being able to charge those workers that portion of the cost of collective bargaining to bargain for that agreement, to administer that agreement, and to enforce that agreement. On the other hand, federal law requires unions to represent every employee in a bargaining unit equally, regardless as to whether or not they are union members. Contrary to some popular belief out there, both under federal and state law, you cannot require someone to belong to a union who does not want to become a member of a union. You can simply require, by a majority vote of your members in that bargaining unit, that they pay a fair share of the portion of that representation cost. The practical effect of that passage of that legislation is a weakening of the labor movement, a weakening of the unions, and a subsequent reduction in the living standards of all workers, whether they're organized or not. That's been the history in states across the country. Average wages are lower in right-to-work states than they are in free collective bargaining states like Montana. Unemployment benefits, workers' compensation benefits, taxation policies are much worse. You simply see an overall reduction in the social standards by which everybody must live in a right-to-work state versus a non-right-to-work state. Other issues that we'll be addressing up here very briefly include the sales tax. The Montana Labor Movement stands in adamant opposition to the passage of a sales tax in our state. We'll be in here to protect workers from further deterioration of workers' compensation benefits and hopefully to repeal the old fund liability tax, which is nothing more than a tax on workers to pay the premiums of their employer's insurance against an injured worker suing them for an on-the-job injury. We'll be working to protect the quality of education and funding of education in the state of Montana, to prevent the attacks that are occurring on local government. For example, there's a bill up today that would amend the Montana Constitution to prohibit unfunded mandates being passed from the state government down to local governments and school districts in the state. Again, the practical effect of something like that would be to say that you cannot require local government, police force, fire protection, water quality, sewers, whatever it might be, that the state can't pass a law mandating a certain level of benefits and then require local government to comply with those benefits without also providing local government the money to comply with those benefits. That simply is an unworkable and untenable situation for local governments and communities throughout the state of Montana.
When your executive board meets of the AFL-CIO, do you recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
We have not typically, no.
Mm-hmm. And if you had, recalcitrant union members, would you spank them on the bare buttocks?
If you're referring to the bills that are currently in here regarding corporal punishment and regarding the mandatory Pledge of Allegiance, our organization has taken no position on those issues, so we won't be in either support or opposition to them. I can tell you, however, that clearly the education community, including our affiliated teachers organization, are concerned about things like mandatory pledges and things like spanking on the buttocks and other things.
John, you're more suave than I was counting on. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
What are you guys doing up here? Yeah. Looking around? I'm on my lunch break. Just something to do while you're taking lunch?
Yeah, waste some time.
And you're helping him waste time?
Yeah.
My name's Kinsey Casey, and I'm from Helena, Montana here. And this week I'm sponsored by Representative Harper. And actually, I just run a lot of errands for the representatives and deliver mail and that kind of thing. And right now, I'm headed down to word processing so that I can get some more to deliver to the representatives on the floor. It's a lot of fun, and I'm learning a lot this week, too.
Are you in high school?
Yes, I'm a junior in high school.
Which one?
Helena High.
And have you been interested in public affairs for a time, or how did it?
Yeah, I had an interest in government, and I thought I'd try this out and see what I like, and now I'm kind of addicted to government, so I'm going to have to come back, I think, even though I'm not going to be a page for the weeks to follow, but.
Hey, thanks a lot for chatting.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you had your druthers, if you were king of the world, how would you get the money that you say we need?
Well, if I were king of the world,
Well,
and we could just...
structurally, if you were the governor or like a powerhouse in Montana, you're something of a powerhouse now, at least Montana style, right?
We would have a mix of tax sources, including income, property, and sales, and they would be balanced and universal, and all folks would be engaged in the opportunity to pay for their public schools in that way. We don't have a sales tax in this state, so we have to deal with what we do have, which is a badly damaged property tax system held in ever increasingly more disrepute, and an income tax system which is slightly progressive. But one way or another, the money is there in Montana. We just have to get it from people in an equitable and adequate fashion.
And just a little, political history and stuff. Wasn't there a political break, and I'm sure you'll be able to straighten me out if I'm putting this wrong. Wasn't there a political break between the MEA, your organization, and Chet Blaylock?
I don't know if there was a political break. The MEA, in its political action process, chose to recommend Governor Mark Roscoe for re-election. But I don't know that that would be in any sense and should not be construed then nor now as some break from Chet Blaylock, who was a standard bearer of ours, a member of our association and one of Montana's great political leaders of the last 25 years. Chet.
So what was it specifically that caused you to make that endorsement when traditionally you would have, according to popular wisdom, that you would have stuck with one of your own?
Primary reason was that Governor Roscoe had served us well in his first term, and that it is our tradition, it is our belief that when you have an incumbent who has served you well, then, and you've asked that incumbent to deliver on certain things, and we did ask the governor to deliver in a certain area or two, and he did deliver, that we would then embrace that person for re-election, and that's exactly what we did.
And you mentioned the sales tax. You have some agreement with the governor on the need for a sales tax. Is that correct?
Yes. We firmly believe that the state cannot long survive continuing to fight rather bloody battles, frankly, over the property tax. And, we spent a great deal of our own members' dues and our political capital waging war against those who would eliminate the property tax or diminish it and damage it in some fashion that it wouldn't serve us well. And we're going to have to solve that issue.
How many members do you have?
10,000.
10,000. And what, in terms of the dues, what's the association's gross budget in a year, more or less?
Our annual budget as an association is a little less than $3 million.
Annually?
Annually.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
You bet. Thank you. Enjoy.
Well, we're up in Helena. We're at the legislature. We're in the state capitol building. I'm not yet in a state of collapse the way I usually get when I come to Helena when the legislature is in session. You're looking, of course, at the mountains in the distance across the Helena Flats, and in the immediate foreground is that statue of the late, great, and much lamented Irish and American and Montana hero, Thomas Francis Meagher, who had such little use for the money changers that he found when he came to Montana. He talks about their soulless ledgers, their ledgers without a soul.
Mac?
Yeah? Huh?
I think you dozed off there a bit.
Oh, I got...
What was... Must have had some nice dreams going on.
Well, yeah. You know what? I'm a news junkie. That's all there is to it. I'm a print junkie. See, lawmakers attack porn, but we got, these censorship issues are always coming up, and and yet you got a public broadcasting system. I mean, and not just in Montana, I suppose, but it's what we're most familiar with, and there's censorship even on that level, on public broadcasting level in Montana. There are programs that because Bozeman, we just had this opening of the TV. Public television station operating out of the University of Montana, but basically the program schedule is set by Bozeman, and I've heard from numerous people down Bozeman Way of the programs produced nationally for PBS, and somebody at the station down there in Bozeman is the honcho that says, well, I'm not going to air this program on Montana Public Television because it's not appropriate for the Montana viewing audience. Well, how does one white guy decide what's appropriate for the Montana television audience. I mean, that's censorship.
Especially if it's not a legislator.
Yeah, well, so censorship goes on all the time. I mean, you hear very little news reportage on the telecommunications industry in Montana over public radio and public television, and there's an extremely limited window of opportunity for independent producers, to have their film and video programs on Montana Public Broadcasting. We had talked over the years of when the national signal shuts down, let's say on public television in Missoula, say the last show was on at midnight, Charlie Rose or whatever it was, that would be a good opportunity for independent filmmakers in Montana to be showing their stuff, these award-winning tapes that have been made around the state. And so now I see that instead of opening up that opportunity, they're putting on a so-called overnight feed from PBS, so that there is no opportunity. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I get discouraged, as you know. But anyway, let's see. Are these dishes done? Cats fed, dogs fed. Oh, silverware. I hate doing silverware. The silverware can wait for a while. Oh, you woke me up too soon.
Sorry about that.
Mm.
I figured 20 minutes was long enough.
20 minutes.
Barely had time to make any more coffee. In fact, I didn't have time to make more coffee.
Let's see. So, let's see. Where else have we got? Oh, I'm reading this book, How the Irish Saved Civilization, and it's really good and a little bit slow going at times, but basically it talks about the Dark Ages, when the barbarians were marauding through Europe, as we right.
Who were the barbarians? And who were the civilized then?
Some of them were called Pict people, P-I-C-T, I think, because they drew pictures all over their bodies, and they were great warriors, but they were racing through Europe, destroying artworks and books and literature and things like this, and so people in Europe.
I think we got a few of those in the legislature.
Yeah, I know. They want to,
the Picts legislature.
It'd be nice to see a governor or anyone who spoke out. Well, we do have some of those folks that stand up and speak for freedom of speech and non-censorship, and I want to say I want to say about the Missoula Public Library, as long as we're talking about print, that that's an excellent library. I really appreciate that. We have a new free speech program on MCAT on Monday nights, and did you hear about that?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of it.
Uh-huh.
It's not the one that's titled Free Speech that they run late at night, is it?
Right. That's on, I think, at 10 o'clock. Is that a daily show? That Free Speech Television?
I don't know if it's daily. I've seen it.
But it is on at 10 o'clock. I think it's
good.
maybe Thursday night.
What's the one you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, no. But so that's Thursday night. That's a pretty good show. That starts at 10 o'clock, and but this is a new show that MCAT inaugurated, and it's every Monday night at 6:30. It's live, and it's basically just an open mic, and anyone can come into the studio at MCAT on Spruce and have their speak about whatever they want to talk about. It's kind of a letters to the editor type thing. So people who want to express themselves about anything, just show up at MCAT. You don't need to call them. Try and keep your, depending on the numbers of folks that show up, try and keep your, thoughts and remarks, to the point, and so that other people have the opportunity. And but anyway, it's Monday nights live, and just come on down to the studio at MCAT on Spruce Street. Come in down that ramp, just up from Higgins. And what else have we got here? I've lost my. Well, what have you been noticing anything?
Well, I was really upset about the the legislator up in the north here who was protesting that funding for the Arts Council is going to cover obscene things like the rep show.
The Montana Repertory Theater Company.
Yeah.
Operating based. Absolutely. I mean, in other words, I don't know where things stand exactly. It was my understanding.
When you could censor something by the title alone,
right? It was
not ever having seen it or known anything about it.
Yeah.
That's the height of ridiculousness.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost ranks up with some of the legislative stuff last session.
There's the people. It's kind of sad that people are so afraid of the written word, or the visual image. There's always somebody on the attack, and I don't go around telling people what to read or what to see. I mean, I might say that obviously I'm human. I say, well, I don't think that book or that movie or that play is worth your time or the money you might spend to buy it or go see it. But, I've been fortunately, along with many others, the recipient of, state money through the Arts Council and federal money, not much, but enough to help me get through a winter on occasion. Anyway, just so that the folks watching know specifically, you're talking about that Eric Bogosian play called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, which was pretty big play around the country, not a big smash hit, but an important and significant work. And this legislator, wants to. I think he even filed an amendment to. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I filed an amendment in Helena about last week sometime that would force the Montana Arts Council to spend their money only on materials that were appropriate for children or that were appropriate for the entire family, but specifically, according to that legislator's language in the amendment that he offered in committee, which I think passed, was that the Arts Council could not spend money on materials that were appropriate only for a mature audience. So if you were mature, if you were a mature person, that's when you could not be allowed to see, read, or enjoy something that was funded by the Arts Council. When will it ever cease? I guess finally, now that I'm in my middle age, I finally understand that it's never over. It's a pain in the backside, but that the First Amendment is so powerful that that the struggle over what it means is never over, and that we each and every one of us have to be on guard, and this crosses over the territory that is to say, those of us who are interested in First Amendment rights, it crosses the boundary from the right wing to the left wing. I mean, you know, the minute somebody, you know, if you're going to say you're going to take away, you know, my rights to speak or to view or to, then what's going to happen to, you know, your rights down the line to, you know, when you want to write something?
How do you answer those that say that it's okay, but the state has no business funding this stuff?
You know, I'm of Irish descent. A couple of years ago, I spent 6 months in Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland, which is about the size of Montana geographically, although it has more people. You know, it has a few million citizens in Ireland, and Ireland alone, you know, and it's not a wealthy country. It's part of the European, you know, community, the common market, what we used to call it. And of all those nations in the community, Ireland is one of the least well off. But it spends more money on the arts and artists in Ireland than we do in the United States as a whole. And there's 96 theater companies in Ireland. You know, little theater companies in small towns, touring companies, and I was so proud, you know, to be there and to see that, and I reflect on that, and I said, you know, and look at the literature that the Irish have produced and are still producing. That's because they understand as a nation that it's worthwhile, that it's important, that it's significant. So, you know, we don't need to quibble over, you know, if we're quibbling over a couple $100,000, we should be upping our investment in the arts. I should be able to pick up the newspaper and read that U.S. West and Arco and all of those, and many of the large corporations do donate to the arts. I'd like to pick up the paper and see a headline saying that, you know, 5 major Montana corporations have tripled their support for the arts. But, you know, do we have an obligation to artists as well as to the audience? Yes. What happens to the art lessons and the dance lessons and the music lessons in public schools throughout Montana without that, you know, yes, you have to have dollar support. People have to eat. Artists have to eat. So, you know, I was spacing that one out. I'm glad you brought that up. And the, you know, the Arts Council is understaffed right now. They had to cut back even 2 years ago on their staff, and it's, you know, I mean, people working long hours trying to hold things together. It's very discouraging. People are getting demoralized by it. I mean, if the legislators went out and to their constituents and said, "Oh, do you want, you know, do you want the music program, you know, in your school, you know, eliminated?" I don't think you'd get a bunch of people saying, "Yeah, please eliminate that." You know, I mean, the monies we're talking about here are minuscule. It's very sad. You know, apparently the governor has, to give the devil his due, St. Mark, has you know, tried to throw a lot of support to the Arts Council, and but the legislature is not so far buying into it.
I think with what I've got here, we better wrap.
Okay.
It's coming to an end.
All right. Let's call it a wrap. And
you gonna be back?
I don't know if I'll be back. I might be in Ireland by next week.
Ah.
But anyway, yeah, I have a slot, I think, next Thursday night, and we'll see what we produce. And thanks a lot for helping out. And God save us all. Bye.